right. So lots going on. We didn't even tackle the border in a meaningful way today, but I have a feeling Liz may have something to say on this. We did hear, of course, from President Trump just last night in Palm Beach. He's come out swinging big time.
I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it.
Liz Arrington joining me with more on all of this. Liz Arrington, good to see you, Liz.
Great to see you, Trish.
Wow. All right. So last night was a pretty big night. Week is a pretty big week. What's your overall assessment of things? I mean, how are you feeling here day after?
Well, I'm feeling like it was a very pivotal, historic day for our country in many bad ways. However, I think President Trump coming out last night, he delivered a very powerful speech. He told the American people exactly what's going on, spoke the truth about this lawlessness that is targeting him, but is really about targeting our entire country. It's really about targeting the average American, destroying the rule of law, and destroying our country in the process. And he laid out key things that are happening to our country right now that really show what this is all about. He is the one person who challenges the corrupt establishment. And meanwhile, the establishment is busy trying to get us into World War III with Ukraine and Russia. Mm-hmm. They're opening our border. The dollar could be about to lose our status as the world reserve currency.
That one, by the way, because you know me, I'm a business reporter.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm looking at gold today and we're at like $2,040 an ounce. I'm like, my gosh. I mean, this is crazy to me. I've always been concerned about the long-term economic fundamentals of our country. But if someone said to me, do you think gold's going to be at 2040 right now? I'd say, maybe the end of the year, maybe by fall, depends on what happens with China. And I'm looking at it and it's happening now. So you're right. I mean, there's scary stuff going on. And I say to myself, like, why aren't we actually addressing these policy issues? China, for example. Oh, turns out they got a spy balloon that's running figure eights all over our military complexes, and we don't actually respond with a massive amount of sanctions. I mean, that to me would be the logical move. Hit them where it hurts their economy.
Exactly. And we don't shoot it down until it finishes its mission. I mean, these are scandals of biblical proportions for our country, and it's really weakening our status in the world. I mean, none of this happened under President Trump. And I think that's the key here. That's why they're going after him so hard. And they cannot allow the American people to choose their next leader ever again. They don't want it to happen because the corrupt establishment, they're getting rich off this collapse. They're getting rich by China's rise. I mean, look at the Bidens. I mean, it's absolutely appalling, the corruption there. But that's just one example.
We have actually a congressman coming on later this week to talk about some of what has been uncovered. I suspect, Liz, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, now that Donald Trump's been indicted, I think the gloves are kind of off. Am I right? I mean, this is like the genie gets let out of the bottle. I've said all along, because I've spent a lot of time covering some banana republics down in Latin and South America. It feels eerily similar. And I suspect now you're going to have a lot of Republicans, DAs all over the country in conservative places, trying to dig up stuff on Biden and Clinton and whoever they can. I mean, the civility, if you would, is gone.
Right. And they could actually do real investigations because there's actually stuff to look into, unlike President Trump, who for 7 years now, this is it. This is all they've been able to find, which is a non-crime. I mean, something that is so preposterous. I mean, it's pathetic. But it is just indicative. I mean, you speak about these banana republics. That's what they're turning us into. And that's what's so dangerous. And that's what President Trump is so concerned about. We can't continue like this for much longer as a country. We're going to lose it. And the gloves should be off. And that's why President Trump this morning called for Congress, these Republicans, defund the DOJ and FBI until they clean up their act, because make no mistake, they are directly involved in these witch hunts. They sent the number 3 person at the DOJ to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to resurrect this zombie case that the feds refused to charge, that everyone looked at, knew there was nothing there. But
Even Bragg, by the way.
Exactly.
He was quoted as saying, I don't think this thing has legs.
Exactly. So they should be defunded. The subpoenas should be flying out the window. I mean, we need real accountability, or otherwise this is going to continue and all of us will be the target.
Look, I think you mentioned all of us being the target. I think even about Matt Taibbi and the incident that happened with him the other day with the IRS showing up at his doorstep just as he's about to testify before Congress. You think about Lena Khan's case from the FTC, where she's investigating Twitter under the idea that somehow people's data is being compromised. I would say, hey, maybe take a look at TikTok first, but they also want to know every journalist that got copies of the emails between government and Twitter. It tells me that they're scared about something. We know that. And they're definitely scared about former President Trump possibly getting in there again.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we keep repeating. I mean, this is election interference. There's no way around it. Now they're scheduling this sham show trial for January 2024, right at the start of primary season. I mean, it's so obvious. It's so transparent.
But doesn't it actually help him, Liz? I mean,
everything they try to do.
And even independence, like he was struggling with independence. I think there were a lot of people, let's be frank, let's be honest. After January 6th, they were like, oh, okay, I'm not sure. And now, given what's just happened, I think that whole crowd of people in the middle are saying, wait a second, like, there's some there and they're really targeting him in a way that we don't feel comfortable with as Americans.
Well, absolutely. And the American people are smart. They see through it. And every time this overreach, it always backfires on them. And we've seen it again and again. But the problem is there's been no accountability and they just don't care. They're going to do whatever it takes. As Joe Biden even said, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that he can't run again. And that is so un-American. It's supposed to be about issues, right? Ideas.
Like, even if he's in jail, didn't Eugene Debs run from jail? I mean, he didn't do that well, and it's a good thing he didn't win, but he could run.
I mean, they're not going to, that's the thing. They're not going to be able to stop this movement. It's the greatest political movement in American history, but they're certainly going to try because this shows their desperation. They have no other choice. They have to try to use law enforcement now to meddle in our elections because they know they can't beat President Trump fair and square. They know they can't. And it would be so much easier for them to just get rid of Trump before the primaries, during the primaries, and have just another, establishment really running through the motions campaign where there's not a real choice for the American people. You're getting establishment on the right or establishment on the left. It's the same.
That's been very interesting to me because I'm looking at how the party felt a little bit fractured and has been a bit fractured for a while. And all of a sudden, there's this groundswell of support, even from the people that he'd be running against, that are saying, okay, DeSantis, an example there. Nobody really likes this. I wonder if the Democrats, it's the law of unintended consequences, right? They're trying to make sure that he does not run, that he would not win, that he wouldn't be the nominee. And yet they might have actually gotten themselves exactly the opposite.
Right. And in the process, they're unifying the Republican Party like we've never seen. I mean, the support, President Trump has already been the most popular Republican incumbent in history. But now you're seeing even more people and disaffected Democrats, independents seeing what's happening to our country, seeing what's happening to our energy and our gas prices, our electricity bills. I mean, the grocery, the food prices, exactly. Our border, the crime, the lawlessness, what's happening in our schools. All of these issues affect their daily life, and they remember what it was like under President Trump. And the only chaos was actually in the media and the establishment. They were the ones that were worried. The American people they had peace and stability. They had a booming economy. They want that again, and they see the difference. And the longer this goes on, the more they target him. They see how unjust it is. And the American people, inherently like fairness. They want equal justice.
No,
and so the
it's
more
very
they
true.
unfairly target him, the more people will gravitate towards him.
Look, you have a media background. What's your assessment? Look, it doesn't take much to encourage me because I feel like the media is so insanely biased. But when I see the New York Times admit that these are going to be extremely difficult charges to prove, I at least say, okay, well, at least someone's being a little bit honest. I don't know how long that lasts. And let's be very frank. I mean, the bar is that low. But
Right.
what do you think about the media in terms of the coverage we've seen thus far, which, yes, is biased, but at some point they have to admit that this is kind of a tricky one to be able to prove. And second, how do you think they'll treat him going into the big race?
Well, some things are really almost impossible to spin because, I mean, on its face, you know that, first of all, President Trump is completely innocent. They're taking something that would be, if it was a crime, a misdemeanor, past the statute of limitations. They're trying to latch it onto a federal crime, which a state cannot bring. And when the Fed said there was no violation, there was never any campaign finance, and it's all well documented. The Mueller witch hunt looked at this directly, and if Andrew Weissman wasn't going to bring this charge, you couldn't bring it because they were so biased on that sham investigation as well. So look, there's some things you can't really spin, but as a whole, they are very corrupt, the media. They are not honest. They're trying to damage President Trump while also they're ignoring these major stories of the day, like we mentioned at the top of this show. I mean, you're talking about the dollar losing its reserve status. That's a direct result of this Biden government pushing Saudi Arabia away from the United States, pushing Putin and Chairman Xi together. I mean, this is catastrophic for the country. And there's so much scandal behind it.
They're playing checkers over there. I mean, no one gets it. I mean, you do not want Russia and China. By the way, Nixon got this. I mean, this is why Nixon went over to China in the beginning. You may debate it now and say, hey, maybe we went a little too far. The problem is people get greedy. Corporations get greedy. CEOs get greedy. Both sides get greedy. And so this was like a bipartisan effort. Don't forget, under Bill Clinton, let's like kumbaya. We're going to have the NAFTA agreement. We're going to do business with China. Everybody's going to grow rich, except China. They're smart. They got that 100-year plan going on, and they were able to use all of that economic strength that they built up to turn into military strength, to turn into spying strength, to one day possibly use against us. And I think that's the real fear. And we need somebody who understands that and can deal with it. Obviously, Joe Biden has shown us over and over again that he feels a little past his prime. Not that he was ever, a rocket scientist, but we've seen a lot of evidence of that. You combine it with Antony Blinken, who, by the way, John McCain said on the House floor, he wouldn't vote for him as deputy undersecretary of state in the Obama administration because he thought the guy was not competent. And that lack of competence could result in the loss of lives. I mean, we got the B team, Biden, Blinken there in charge. And I think that it's catching up with Americans for sure.
Exactly. And the ties to the financial connections to the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, the Biden family has taken millions in these shady deals. They haven't been investigated for any of that. The FBI has had all the evidence on that laptop for years now. They're not doing anything about it.
That was misinformation, as I do recall.
Right.
Which
is election interference, which Alvin Bragg is trying to somehow claim that there was election interference with his sham case involving President Trump. Yet we have the FBI working in concert with big tech to censor the New York Post and the biggest story going into the 2020 election. Totally unconstitutional, totally violating the First Amendment. And there's been no charges. There's been nothing. In fact, the FBI is getting a funding boost. The DOJ is getting a funding boost. This is why President Trump said we got to defund them.
For all the president's outspoken rhetoric against the media and his frustration with the media and all the things that he said about the media, I never heard about a journalist being spied upon. I think about the Obama administration, Jim Rosen over at Fox News, was being spied upon by the Obama administration. Cheryl Atkinson has made similar allegations. And, you know, this IRS thing with Matt Taibbi, you got me. I don't know what that one is. But I would just point out that, yes, he was very vocal in his criticism, but it was all out there. I never heard of any journalist being actually spied upon. So think about that.
Exactly. And the abuse of power that we saw under Obama and now Biden is just unheard of. Like President Trump said, I never thought this would be happening in America. I never think it would happen. And that's the really chilling thing. And for President Trump always took it back to the media because they were always attacking him. That is fair game. But he was open and transparent about it, and he would tell it to their face. He was not behind the scenes trying to suppress the First Amendment. He wasn't colluding with some of these big tech companies. He wasn't doing any of that. He's a straight shooter. And to go back on China, this is all kind of connected because he's the only president who has taken on China. Oh, yeah. And that's a threat to their financial interest in the swamp.
Wow. Liz Harrington, thank you so much for joining us today. So much going on. We hope to have you back soon. Take care, my friend.
Thank you so much, Trish.